Hey, I'm Paul Monahan, and welcome to the Most Important Game podcast. If you don't know who Scott Fawcett is in the world of golf, I'm not sure how you don't know who he is and who Decade Golf is, but listen, it's okay. If you don't know who he is, you're going to learn a lot about golf statistics and course management today. Scott has almost single-handedly changed the landscape, if you will, of the game of golf over the past 10 or 15 years. And he's going to continue doing it. He has some amazing ideas on how we can all play the game differently. And a lot of times it's about changing paradigms and changing old thoughts and thinking about the game in new and fresh ways. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation with Scott. Here we go. All right. Good morning, Scott Fawcett. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to be seen. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me on the show today. Really appreciate it. I want to just jump right in, and I want to talk about the big story, I think on everybody's mind here. We're only a couple of days removed as we record this from the Gary Woodland win. And I think there's a lot to talk about. And I'm curious what's on your mind as you think about the big win for Gary.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, I've spent a decent amount of time with Gary on webinars and stuff, talking strategy and whatnot a few years ago, and he really is a good dude. It's so interesting how you can have just an opinion of somebody, and then when you actually meet him, like, Bubba, I didn't really care for the guy. And then once I walked 9 holes with him and worked with him a little bit, I worked with Ted Scott for a long time while he was his caddy, and you're like, oh, Bubba, you're just like us. You're just a little quirky. I'd say the same thing about Gary, like, he's just a stud. So yeah, he carries himself as though he's a stud. But I always kind of took it as maybe he's a little bit arrogant or whatever. And it's like, no, he's just a big, solid, great athlete who's a good dude. And it was really, I mean, that and the Ricky Fowler win, just anytime you see guys come back from injuries, if Zalatoris hopefully can ever pull it off, it's just really cool. And then to also see some, just more clips have been circulating from Gary. And I saw one this morning with Daniel Rappaport, who's doing like a rapid questions on him. And he's like, dumbest purchase you've ever made. He's like, a Rolls Royce. He's like, I felt like such an idiot driving this thing around. And
Gary Woodland purchased a Rolls Royce?
Yeah, I think it was the convertible. I think it was the convertible one, maybe. I mean, I bought a convertible Bentley one time, and for about a month, I loved it. And then I felt like the biggest idiot in it. And so I just thought that he had the wherewithal to admit that, openly, like, yeah, that's just not me, man. He really is just a solid dude. And it's just awesome to watch people face adversity and come back. I've faced some adversity in my life and try to keep on making comeback stories. So it's just cool to watch somebody go from, I wouldn't say the bottom because it's not like his game dropped off, but just the bottom physically and mentally. And he talked about having to write basically goodbye letters to his kids. I can't even imagine going through that exercise and how troubling, challenging that would be. So I thought it was amazing to watch.
Yeah, super heavy. One of the things that I've enjoyed, and I continue to send my clients, my customers, if you will, my listeners, over to you and listen, because I think one of the things that I think you've done really well is you've entered this space with humility and vulnerability. And like I would say, vulnerability is sometimes it's a little overused. I feel like it's a little woo-woo. But man, for me and in my coaching model, in my mental game coaching model, vulnerability is one of the heroes. And I think that it showed up this week. I think you do a great job of telling us when the times where you made a mistake or wish you would have done something different. And I think there's a lot of power in that. Would you say?
I mean, yeah, I appreciate that. And it is one of the reasons. The reason I fight so many fights on social media with big name guys like Brad Faxon and whoever is because I don't want the next Will Zalatoris to listen to him saying something like, this is what I did, when it's just categorically not what he did. We want to learn from our elders. I view the challenges I've had in my personal life. I mean, we may or may not touch on it, but I've had a double murder suicide involving my sister and nephews. I was obviously a failed playing professional, which was a very, disheartening experience. And I've just kept on battling with this game. And so I do try to just be pretty open and honest with what's going on in my game and life, because I want the next young player to realize, A, they're not alone, but B, there is an alternative to, like me, being a lunatic on the golf course. I mean, I was the biggest a-hole on the golf course, period. Zero regard for my playing competitors. Just, it was all me, and you guys just happened to be in my group today. And just looking back at it, it's just largely unnecessary. So I try to teach from experiences, both good and bad. I've had some highlights too. So I've tried to dig into the mental things that I did as playing successfully as a, I won a couple times on the Hooters. It's not like I was kidding myself, but then also caddying for a guy like Zalatoris when he won the Texas Salmon US Junior, just what I see as a caddy from the other side of the non-emotional attachment to outcome ropes. And I do feel like I've got a pretty unique perspective on life and the game, but it certainly seems to resonate with people. So I'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's like in essence, the kinds of things that you do, the kind of thing that Gary Woodland did for all, like the gift in all of it is it's giving us permission to show up and be a little more willing to let others see not just the perfect side of us, but like the side that's a little flawed, that's a little imperfect. Oh, by the way, that's called, living life. That's called being human, right?
I mean, it really is. At the end of the day, it seems like when we're looking at this facade, I think, Lewis Howes or somebody calls it like the mask. We all are wearing this mask, especially on social media, where it's just like, it seems like everyone's got this great gig going on and everybody's a train wreck just like you are. And just understanding that, I mean, obviously the ups and downs of professional golf are pretty drastic. And so those guys live a lot harder life. I mean, again, you see a guy like Tiger doing what he's done. It's a lot harder out there than you think it is. And as silly as this is going to sound, making millions of dollars by the time you're 30 sounds awesome, but what's next? I mean, again, a guy like Zalatoris, who's clearly having a lot of issues with his back, I mean, he's probably made 50 million total in the last however many years. There's not a whole lot left aside from somehow keeping the fire burning to play and compete in golf. But let's even pretend that he pulls that off and gets to play until he's 40. We still got a lot of life left. And if nothing you can ever do financially is going to move the needle at the point that you retire from playing professional golf, like finding that purpose is difficult. And I think that's what a guy like Tiger battles. I mean, I went down a couple of weeks ago to work. I'm doing hammer consulting, as comical as that is, for the Bay Club and the TGL stuff. And everybody's getting all excited with the Masters coming up, and Tiger hadn't ruled it out like right around that week. And I watched him walk and I'm like, this guy's he's not competing. He may try to gut it out and play, but it would be like Navy SEAL training if he can walk even just 9 holes, let alone 18 or 72. I mean,
or at a place like Augusta.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And so it sucks because I would have loved to see a nice mid-40s, late 50s, or early 50s, late 40s, early 50s run out of him. But after that car wreck, the first one, he's just smoked. And it just sucks to see a guy like that having to resort to painkillers. Like, I'm sure it's an addiction at this point, whatever. But it was just a genuine, I really need some painkillers. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch Tiger because, I mean, I would assume part of his probation is going to be drug testing. And those things are going to be at the top of the list. So it's like, man, I actually do need them. I'm not just screwing around. And now he's just going to be in pain and not be able to work out like he's used to and just everything else, man. Life is hard. I mean, that's the cliff notes I wish I could give my 25-year-old self. When people say, well, like, what's the advice you give your 25-year-old? Dude, life's hard. Figure out a way to laugh at it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think you're exactly right. There's a great, so there's a chapter in this little baby book here that I wrote. And it's just a series of reflections, right? It's just 36 little mental game reflections. But the very first story is the story of the highest ranking admiral in the Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam, right? And so it's a story about James Stockdale and what he had to say about overcoming challenge, essentially, in the Vietnam War, and in a place like the Hanoi Hilton. And what emerged from his conversations with different people is that he said that the people who were super optimistic and were like, oh yeah, we're getting out at Christmas, and then Christmas would come and go and they wouldn't get out. Oh, we're getting out at Valentine's. We're getting out at da-da-da. They were overly optimistic, and they a large portion of those prisoners didn't make it mentally, emotionally, or even actually physically, right? And he goes, it was the ones who said, hey, this is going to be hard, but I'm willing. I have faith that we're going to get out at some point. I just don't know when. It's going to be hard, and I'm going to lean in. And I think that's a great way to think about, life in general. Like there's going to be some challenges.
And I think the hard part about it is, especially as I get older and see working with more young players, having a couple teenage daughters, everything in life is a giant bell curve. So we've got a bell curve of that guy that's just like, hey, we're going to be positive, and then a guy that's just, hey, everything is negative. Obviously, as a population average, we're all average. But it is really hard because there's times when I even look at myself and the stuff I do on social media. It's like, why in the world are you doing this? I just can't. So I'm on whatever portion of the bell curve that is just, I just have to tell the internet it's wrong. And it would be so great to be somebody else who's just like, man, Claude Harmon, like, whatever, dude. I don't care what you have to say. I'm fine with me. And then just everything in life is along those lines in some form or fashion. And it's hard because you wish everybody could be that positive guy, but everybody can't. Hopefully everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. I heard another podcast too where they were talking about like these 4 different character types and they had a name for it, but one was like the poet. And so there's people that are like, oh God, I'm going to screw this up, but it's the poet is your sad guy that's kind of always depressive, and they have the muse that talks to them and they talk through, and then you've got, the judge, and there are these 4 personalities. I was like, wow, that's really, really impressive and accurate. Everybody really does kind of fit into these 4 different categories, and you've got to figure out which one you are and use it as a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah, no question. I think one of the things too that comes up for me. I loved the session you did with Cordy Walker on the course. I think that was. It's only been out for a couple of weeks. It's a great podcast. There's a moment. I'm going to just show you this image here. See if I can get it in the screen here. So I don't know if you know do you know what's going on in that moment?
I have a hunch it's when I realized I hit the wrong club on 4.
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking about too. Like your willingness to say, gee, Cordy, I was telling you to do this thing. And wait a minute, I just realized I didn't do the thing that I was advising you to do. And it's just, anyway, I think that's really powerful. And I think it's really, there's 2 things going on. One is I think for me, it's like, all right, life is hard, and doing the things that we commit to and intend to, sometimes we forget, right? Focus is variable. But also being willing to say, oh man, I didn't get that right. Like that's.
Well, it's the only way you're going to, improve, being able to be honest with yourself and self-reflection. If you can't do that, you're just always kidding yourself. And I hate how much the modern society gives the young generation, I don't even know what generation it is, but a hard time about being soft and everything's trauma and whatever. But there's also a lot of times where it's like you are playing the victim card too much here, and let's just pretend that you're right. So no one's coming along to save you. You need to figure it out on your own, and you need to take a little ownership of your life. I mean, I've been pretty hard on my oldest daughter. Like I said, I've gone through a lot of stuff over the last 10 years. I probably could have done a better job parenting. But also I want to tell her, like, buddy, I've apologized. I've screwed it up. And now let's move forward. And you can either move forward with me or like we're just going to have problems forever. So it really is about being able to take some accountability, admit when you've done wrong, and then make the necessary adjustments. I mean, the definition of improvement isn't I'm getting to number 1 in the world in golf. Like that you'd have to improve to get there. But the definition of improvement is just being better than you were yesterday. It's when people want all these different stats categories in decade to compare themselves to, I'm like, why? Just so you can see that you're in this zone or that zone. Your ranking should show you where you're at. You just need to keep doing what you need to do, what your process is to get better. And I think that's one of the greatest things about social media is you do see more stuff with guys like, Nick Saban and just Phil Jackson, Pete Carroll, all the great coaches. They all have the same thought process, just process over results. And that's one thing that I did by accident with Zalatoris those first couple of years because I didn't really understand it so much. But it's like, bud, we're going to just focus on what we need to do on the golf course. And that's it.
Yeah, that's huge. I am thinking about something that an old buddy of yours from the Hooters tour time frame, Tim Graves over in Edmond, Oklahoma. And Tim likes to say
at the golf course I grew up. I'm pretty sure I've known him for forever.
Wait, Tim worked at where?
I think he worked at Glen Eagles where I grew up in Plano.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I know
David
they were.
Graves. I can't remember which one of them. Not David Graves. That's my buddy. Who's Tim's brother? Doesn't he have a brother also?
Yeah. So
What's
Todd
his?
Graves and Tim Graves.
It might be Todd.
Yeah. Well, they were the guys who got connected with Mo Norman in the mid '90s. Spent a bunch of years with him, and Todd sort of famously codified the Mo Norman swing, and Todd and Tim have been teaching that for years. And they have an academy up in Edmond.
Yeah.
And they live at Oak Tree National, and but Tim likes to say that it would be really helpful if you think of the reason you play golf this way. You're not out there to prove anything. You're there to let the game show you what you need to work on. Completely different, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about proving anything to anybody.
Well, and that's one of the things I do find interesting, because I was never that guy that I want to prove something to somebody else that I belong or whatever. But you do hear that from a lot of top competitors. And again, that's that bell curve. Like, I don't know that that's the healthiest approach to come at it from. I mean, if you're carrying that kind of a grudge, I mean, again, like a Michael Jordan, it's a fine line, man, between sane and completely insane. I mean, that stuff with Jordan where he just held. I just started watching The Last Dance or whatever it's called again, and the amount of just grudges and everything that dude held. And I was actually telling a friend this last night. I played a decent amount of golf with Tony Romo, who's obviously a gazillionaire, multiple times past me. And he just wants to get on the course and hurt you. He wants to get the money so high that you struggle. Oh, yeah. I mean, and he just enjoys it. And it's like, you're kind of a psychopath, man. I mean, again, Tony, if you haven't listened to this, I'm kind of kidding, not kidding. But you love pressing the bets up as much as physically possible because you want to see where somebody else breaks. And I think that's a little crazy. That's just not how I roll typically. So,
Right.
Some people are just wired that way. And I do think that is kind of key to making it in professional sports. I mean, one thing about Zalatoris, that guy loves the pressure. He loves being in the middle of that last group. He just thrives on it. And I'll say, I don't know that I necessarily did. I don't think that I understood the point of adrenaline and nerves wasn't to get rid of it. I felt like Tiger was out there just completely calm. No, he had the juices going just like I did, but he welcomed it. And that's one thing Sam Harris, a guy I like listening to and talking about. He's like, the physiology. I love roller coasters. Like, that's what my daughters and I do every summer as we go on some sort of a Six Flags around the country vacation. I love roller coasters. But the physiology of being nervous going on a roller coaster for the first time is basically identical to that of standing the 18th fairway trying to win a golf tournament. And so it's like, I'm welcoming it and actually signing up for it in the roller coaster situation, but I used to try to avoid it in the golf tournament situation because I thought that's what you were supposed to be doing. And at the end of the day, it's really about learning how to manage that adrenaline and everything. That's why I laugh when people say, if you're practicing your putting, go sprint 50 yards and come back and hit putts. I'm like, no, there's a totally different impact of your heart rate being elevated from cardiovascular exhaustion versus adrenaline. It's just not the same thing. I can hit a putt while I'm breathing hard. Can I hit a putt while my hands are shaking? And
the amygdala didn't make your heart race when you were running.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm sitting there in the 18th fairway, my heart rate's at 140 and I'm just standing, like, that's adrenaline, that's fight or flight. And that is about welcoming those feelings. It's what you signed up for by entering the golf tournament at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. Did you see, I don't know how much of the tournaments you watch. I think I might have a sense that I've seen you do a little bit of Monday morning quarterbacking. I think I try and do the same thing sometimes too. At the Arnold Palmer, when Akshay Bhatia and Daniel Berger went into the playoff, remember that? And of course they played 18 3 times that day, right? Once in the morning to finish the third round, and then late in the afternoon to finish the 72nd hole, and then the playoff. Now I can't remember if it was the 18th hole. Yeah, it was. It was the 18th hole. And Berger makes that 7 or 8 footer. And he turns to the crowd that was, very much an Akshay Bhatia crowd, apparently. I wasn't there, but you could sort of hear the stuff going on. And he kind of turns and he, pumps his chest a bit. And I thought, that's it. It's over for him. That's it.
Yeah.
He's trying to prove, and I'm like, I'm not sure that's a productive emotion to have in that moment. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it first of all, so I don't really know. But it's just it can't help you perform better. I've been saying stuff like this for a long time, that like nerves and emotion can't make you play better than you are. You can only play worse than that because you're not as probably engaged, not as focused. And one of the announcers was texting me whenever I was saying something like this on Twitter, and he's texting me, I used to play better when I was emotional. You don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, no, you played worse when you weren't, because you weren't engaged. You can't play better than you are. I mean, like, by definition, you can't play better than you are. That's how good you were. But you just didn't know how to turn it on the third hole on Thursday. And that went over about as well as you would expect it to. But it's just the truth. You can't play better than you are. It's all about focus and intensity. That's where I get into these arguments about block and random practice. People think that, randomizing your targets and everything. I'm like, no, you're just slowing down in practice. That's what the key is. Why, if random shows anything better, which in my opinion, the studies are all terrible, it's entirely because you're slowing down and more engaged. You can do that with block too. It might take more effort. I guess it doesn't take me any more effort. So it's just something that can be done. But getting engaged and really dialed in is how you allow that to happen on the 18th hole, in my opinion, where you're not focused on the crowd. All you know how to do is this next shot at hand.
Yeah, that's interesting. I pulled up the video here from the Tourcast here. Just I'm going to see if we can get this video here. You should be able to see this.
Yeah,
and you'll see him. He makes the putt, and then he turns to the crowd, and he does this. Oh, it's a little thing, right? Like, it was really weird. I'm like, oh man, I just don't think that's going to serve him. And of course, he gets up on the 18th tee in the playoff hole, and he really kind of yanked it. He wasn't driving the ball well that day anyway, but
who knows? You'd have to get in that guy's head to really dissect it, but it certainly looks like that was possible. I would assume he wasn't doing it to Akshay or whoever his playing partner was.
No.
This isn't the NFL where he's sacked a dude just standing over him.
Well, and I think it was it's sort of funny. You know how like the internet is funny sometimes? I think like 18 to 23-year-olds can be the funniest people on the planet, like the stuff they do and like the memeing they do. And I think that there was a group at that tournament, there was a group of younger guys, and they were just kind of giving Berger a hard time, and they were very pro Akshay anyway. So
I think it's amazing how funny some people are. Like whoever it was that showed up when Scheffler got arrested, and they showed up to the round that day in Scotty Scheffler's in T-shirts with his mugshot. I'm like, if you don't own a T-shirt shop, I don't know how you thought to do that right out of the blocks, because that is just incredible comedy, in my opinion. Like, just it's not malicious. It's just funny.
No, it's brilliant. Yeah, it's really good stuff. Yeah. So Will Zalatoris. So I want to talk about your time with Will. I'm very curious about. First of all, I would say this. I'm surprised. I think everybody knows Scott Fawcett. I think everybody, they must, But then I meet people, I'm like, if you're just like, you don't know Scott, what are you doing? You don't know what Scott Fawcett is? So take a moment and kind of give me the quick origin story or the long origin story, however long you want to take. And then I want to talk about your time with Will Zalatoris.
Yeah, I played golf at Texas A&M, got, a couple different math degrees, and then played relatively successful professional golf, but never actually made it, obviously. And then I started an electricity company in 2002 when Texas deregulated, and I started playing a lot of poker. Over the next 4 years, I really started viewing golf more as a math game. Like, we know that chess and backgammon and these other games, even though they have different tools, they are still just math games. And like the dice enters the variance in backgammon, or the cards do in poker. The shot pattern variance is what introduces a little bit of luck into golf. And so I met Chris Como actually playing in an underground poker game here in Dallas in like 2006, and I started working on my game with him. And my goal was to try to win the U.S. Mid-Am just to play in the Masters. And so strokes gained putting came out in 2010, and I was contributing to an online poker forum, and I just wrote a thread just titled just "Drive for Show, Putt for Dough." Really true. It was in June of 2010. I'm really lucky that I can timestamp that to being when I first started thinking about it this way. And then in 2013, when they released all of the strokes gained categories, I was like, well, if I know how many strokes it takes to hole out from any given area on the golf course, and I know the size of shot patterns from, launch monitors like a TrackMan or a Quad, I can basically combine those two data sets and solve course management. So I just started tinkering around without really any end goal in mind. I was just trying to solve a few problems. Luckily for me, right before I was going to try to use it at the Texas Am in 2014, I got a cortisone shot in my right elbow, and the doctor paralyzed my right arm for a couple of days. And he told me you should take a few months off. And I'm like, that's awesome. I just spent 6 months on this math project for golf. Luckily for me, though, Zalatoris was a junior golfer at my home course who at the time was ranked 3,200th in the world in junior golf rankings. But he was just loaded with talent. The guy stripes the golf ball. He, struggled with his putting, obviously. But even at the junior golf level, he should be destroying everyone with the way he hit the golf ball. So it was pretty unique and lucky and whatever to be able to go to him. And I mean, again, when I had Korn Ferry status, he was the 9-year-old that was just, following me around like a puppy dog and doing chipping and putting contests and playing and whatever. So we'd been friends for a long time. And I was like, dude, just let me caddy for you next week in the State Am. I can't play now. We met, we went over everything. And then, he won by 4. And it was just awesome to watch. I mean, from out of nowhere wins the Texas Am. And then luckily the U.S. Junior was down in Houston the next month. And I went down and caddied for him when he won there. And then even more luck, DeChambeau is going to SMU at the time, and the SMU coach was at SMU playing whenever I was playing at A&M. And he came up to me at the USAM that summer. He's like, I think what you're doing with Will is something strategy related. Can you come teach? I've got this player, Bryson DeChambeau, who just fires at every flag, and I can't figure out how to get him to stop. And so Bryson, being a mathy, physicsy nerd, he just obviously just bought right in. I taught that all to him in February of 2015, and then he wins the NCAA's and US Amateur that summer, and next thing you know, I'm on podcasts all over the world. I mean, it really is a funny story, because if I hadn't got my arm paralyzed, I for sure would have gone out in the Texas Am and by 9 would have thought this is so stupid and thrown it in the trash. It was only because of somewhat removing the emotional attachment outcome, because I'm caddying for Will. Like, obviously I wanted him to do good, but I also really wanted to see how this stuff would work with him. So it's all just an amazing coincidence of, yes, a lot of work, but then, man, a whole lot of lucky timing. And, the way I met Zalatoris in the first place, like I say, I started an electricity company in 2002. When his dad got transferred from San Francisco to Dallas, he was an asset manager for the Galleria Mall, which was one of my customers. He calls me in because he's going to fire me and use his guys. And I just happened to be wearing a Bentry Country Club shirt. He's like, oh my God, I just joined Bentry this weekend. I've got a son that's an incredible player. We got to go play. And I'm like, cool. How old is he? He said 9. I'm like, I'm sure he's amazing. Yeah. And then we went out.
Whatever.
I'm just like, whatever, dude. Yeah, we'll go out. And he didn't miss the center of the face as a 9-year-old. His golf swing looked identical to what it does today. There's just some people, that bell curve, he just fell out of the womb, able to hit a golf ball. And it's just incredible to watch sometimes. That's where people say, like, he's got to fix that swing in his back problem. Like, that's just what he's done forever. In the game, the modern game, you have to generate power. Period. You just have to generate power. And so you get a tall, wiry guy like that, the lower back's going to take it because the hips are going to be pointed at the targeted impact, so you're going to be side bent. Guy like me, I'm 6'1", 220. I generate power just by being strong. So my elbows take the force because it's basically everything's extending through impact. So I've had 2 elbow surgeries in my left knee. Like that, some part of the body's taking the force. And it's just kind of an unlucky roll of the dice of when something happens to you, given whatever your swing makeup is. Somebody posted, I think it was Nelly Corda or somebody, side by side with Will's swing. And they were like, look at how perfect and tempoed hers is. The golf swings look almost identical, but she doesn't have injuries. I'm like, and she's not hitting at 185. Like, if you get her hitting at 185, it's not going to look quite the same. It's like that Asian guy that makes the rounds every once in a while. He's hitting balls in like a Top Golf or something, and he's just got the slowest swing ever, and like, what great tempo. And it's like, well, he's bunting it. Like, okay, I can do that too. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
you're
put
not
a
gonna
cat eye
get-
lens behind him, and the ball looks like it's going far.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not, it's not how it works in the modern game. I mean, I do believe that professional careers are going to more resemble an NFL linebacker now than, you know, a Tom Brady. I mean, football's a bad example, but you're just not going to have 25-year careers anymore. They did it before because you kind of had to. Now these guys come out, and if you can play, you make 50 million really quick. And keeping that fire burning when you get out there and realize, I'll say Bo Hostler. I've worked with Bo before. He got out there, man, it's really hard out here. He had the visions of I'm going to be number one in the world and this and that. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm just kind of average out here. I make 4 or 5 million a year. It's a pretty damn good deal, but I don't know how to get to that next level. And so you wind up kind of, I've saw that he's done some mushroom trips down in Costa Rica and other stuff, and that's you're searching for something, and he found it by making a coffee deal. I think it's great, Bo. I mean, I really think it's awesome because golf isn't everything. I mean, most of the guys that I've worked with on tour that are the upper echelon do ride that bell curve of kind of crazy and not necessarily happy. I mean, it looks like you should be really happy, but man, there's a lot of guys out there with a lot of depression, anxiety, drinking too much when you're out on the road. I mean, it's hard, man.
Yeah, no question. It certainly seems that way. Again, back to the the masks that we wear. It's not always easy. When you're caddying for Zalatoris, I've heard you talk about this. You basically were like, "Hey, just do everything I tell you," right? And that's kind of was the start of your caddying relationship. I'm interested in this idea of caddies in general, but also like making as a bridge to most of us play without a caddy. And so how can we sort of excite the inner caddy, and what would we say to ourselves? What should we be saying to ourselves when we're playing? And so I'm curious how you learned to talk to Will that created great results. And then does that transfer to your own game? And how do you talk to yourself? How should you talk to yourself?
I mean, again, I was not trying to create some product that I could eventually sell. I literally I was like, I'm really good at golf, and I'm only 35. Like, I can win the U.S. Mid-Am. If I've got 10 legitimate tries between now and 45, I can do this. And so once I was out there caddying for Will, like you say, the way I was talking to him is the way you should talk to everyone. Like, he'd hit it in the trees. Brook Hollow, where he won the Texas Am, is a tight tree line course, and he'd hit it in the trees. And I would, as we're on the tee, he'd be frustrated and be like, dude, it's okay. We're going to go down there. If we've got a shot, we'll get it up and around the green. If we don't, we'll pitch it out. We'll make a bogey. We know we're going to do that. Now, if we hit it in the trees 8 times today, we're probably not going to win this golf tournament. But you, with your skills, if you hit it in the trees the appropriate amount, and then we don't do something stupid, we're going to be just fine. The difference is I actually meant it. Whereas if you're saying that to yourself, you're full of it. But I legitimately meant it for this kid. And so, again, I wasn't trying to create decade. When I first realized I had something, again, because the SMU coach is like, dude, you've got something here, because these kids are idiots. Like, you could definitely sell something. I don't know what it is, but you got something. I bought the domain. The first thing I did was bought the domain, beyourowncaddie.com. I mean, because that's what it was. At the end of the day, I was just caddying. Then I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, so I decided to try an acronym that is the process. And luckily, decade, the first word I tried for an acronym worked perfectly, which is, again, total luck. Because I've had a number of people tell me, like, did you even try another word? And I'm like, no, it's perfect. They're like, go try to find another word that you think actually makes sense in the acronym, and then try. And I spent like an hour one time. I couldn't come up with a single word. So it's just total luck, but it really was about beyourowncaddie.com. So it's about the definition of wisdom, people say sometimes, is taking the advice you would give somebody else. Most of us can give pretty good advice. We're not idiots. And so it really is about,
like that.
If you were caddying for your buddy, what would you say to him right now? You're the worst bunker player on earth. I mean, there's a kid that we beat, I think, in the quarters, who was a great player at USC. And I could just see him getting more and more frustrated as Will just playing perfect golf. And he's playing decent, but we weren't giving him any openings. And Will messed up number 9 or 10, I think, and I could see him get a little bit mad because he kind of just gave one back. And I was like, trust me, dude, this guy's on a razor's edge right here. He's going to hit a bad shot, and he's going to lose his mind. We're going to win a hole or two, because then he's going to be frustrated for 30 minutes, and this is over. And he's like, okay. And on 12, he hits it in the front bunker, and Will hit a great shot to like 12 feet. This kid's bunker shot was impossible. And he hits it just outside of Will, which was not a bad shot, and proceeds to dismantle the bunker. You're the worst bunker player on the planet. This is so ridiculous. And it's one of those deals, in hindsight, those theatrics, they're a show for everyone else to say, I'm better than this. I want you to know I don't suck out of the bunkers. Like it really is a way to show people I'm better than this. And so it was just wild to watch. And then when he missed the putt, one of the funniest things is when he missed the putt, so he's in with bogey. Will's got 12 feet straight downhill. And I can see Will still kind of lining it up and thinking about it. And so I was like, whoa, what's going on? What's going on here? And he's like, well, I'm trying to putt. I'm like, no, you're trying to make this. You just need to touch this ball and get it somewhere down there within 2 feet short and 2 feet long. I don't care if you make this putt. 3 wins the hole. And it was just so wild because he was still wanting to make this putt, in which case he could easily blow that thing 4 feet by and then have that putt coming back. I'm like, dude, just touch this thing. And it's wild how even in the moment, even a great player can just be not thinking clearly.
Yeah, 100%. It's especially in the heat of, the moment. He could have intentions, but that's why he was lucky you were there. I mean, that's right. It's like I talk all the time. You talked before about like the fights we'll have on social media, and Instagram is kind of a fun spot for me. I'm about 9 months into having a presence on Instagram. And, a lot of the Instagram comments are like, oh, I really needed this. Thank you so much, And then you get the random ones. You're like, of course, they come at 2 a.m. after I suspect some drinking. And they're like, dude, you babble too much. Or, it's like whatever I'm like, that was really mean.
The comments are just wild. I mean, Joe Rogan, I wish I'd listened to it before, but Joe Rogan's like, oh man, you got to stay out of the comments. I mean, and as you get a bigger and bigger following, I've always tried to reply to all comments. So I read them all and then reply to the ones that I think are worth replying to. But some of the stuff you read, it's just like, wow, I don't know how you came off the top ropes at me right there with this. We're just talking golf, man.
Well, exactly. This happened the other day. I did a post. I did a reel on Jacob Bridgman. Like, has super impressed me. The last 3 months, he's played impressive golf. I didn't realize, by the way, he was number 1 in 3-putt avoidance, which I know that's a favorite topic. We should talk about that. But so I'm basically talking about like how he's number 1 in strokes gained putting. He's number 1 in strokes gained average, and he's number 1 in 3-putt avoidance or something like that. Right.
Yeah. And
I get this comment and this guy, and I'm just imagining he's the get off my lawn guy, and he's like this angry quote. He's like, at some point, you so-called gurus are going to finally understand that if you don't have the line, you can't play the game. Or it was, something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to tell Scott about this because I just don't think that's how it works.
I mean, speed control is all that matters in putting. I mean, it really is. Obviously, we've got to work on our start line and our green reading and everything else. But like, if your speed is good, it's pretty hard to be awful at putting. Like, I'm pretty terrible at putting right now. I don't practice, and I don't practice reading greens and whatever, but my speed is decent. So I don't 3-putt very often. For the most part, putt, I would think I'm -0.5 to -3/4 against PGA Tour numbers, which isn't good, but those are the best players in the world. I mean, the one thing that I disagreed with in Mark Brody's book was that if you took all the putters on the planet, and we had just a putting championship, that no one on the PGA Tour would even make the field. And I'm like, dude, those top 50 guys on the PGA Tour can flat out roll it. Sure, there's crazy putt-putt guys that have crazy strokes, and they would probably wear out a tour player on putt-putt. But if you put them on a green where we have to read it and everything else, they're so good, it's unbelievable. And their speed control is just amazing. Even the bad guys on the PGA Tour speed control would blow most golfers' minds away. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 guys out at my club who are like, I'm the best putter in the world. And I'm like, okay. And then every once in a while, they'll hit a 12-footer just 5 foot bound. I'm like, that would never happen with a tour player. And it is just wild how, I mean, speed is just, it's regardless, it takes forever to work on your stroke to improve your start line much. Yep. Once you start focusing on your speed in practice from 20 to 40 feet, you can improve that really quickly. I mean, shockingly fast. And so that's what I definitely have players focus on the most.
Yeah, no question. One of the things that came up as I was thinking about Bridgman was this little thing he does he practices with a blade putter, and then he goes out and he plays with his mallet, his TaylorMade Spider.
That's interesting.
I think it gives him confidence, and that's really how he has kind of reported it. It's like, the blade that I practice with, it's a little harder to get both. I guess probably get both path and face super dialed in. But when he's got that Spider in his hand, he feels like he can't miss anything. I think gives him confidence.
I watched this kid. I don't know. I've never seen him before, but he was out at my home course for like a week straight. He looked like he's around 20. I just don't know if he was just in town or not for something. But he had this drill set up where he basically had a clock, 4 spots at 4 feet around the hole. And then he had like the Tiger 2T drill, that he's trying to just get the putter between, all this stuff set up. And then he was using like the Palmer original, or like that 8802 that's basically just like a foot.
Oh my God.
And I was like, now that you've said that, I'm hoping maybe he's just practicing with that thing and then actually using a Spider, because I'm like, dude, you could not find a harder putter to putt with than that thing. And he's just over there getting frustrated. And I wanted to walk over and be like, hey, do you know who I am? Because I'm about to change your life because you are making this way harder than it needs to be. These modern putters are just so good. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they are confidence builders. And confidence, I mean, look, the GOAT from my perspective, in my space, in the middle game space, Bob Rotella, the GOAT, the game is a game of confidence, Yeah. And I think it's absolutely correct.
It's hard because that's like a fake it till you make it topic also. Like I do believe you just have to kind of act confidence. It's definitely a chicken or an egg situation. You've got to just start feeling it at some point, even though that basically is a non sequitur and makes no sense whatsoever. But golf is a game of confidence. It's a game of visualization also too. Like when I get into certain spots in trouble and I've got to kind of really visualize and feel the shot, the recovery shot, it blows my mind how consistently well I hit those. But then if you put me in the middle of the fairway with a 9-iron, I'm just kind of like swinging at it that way. And that's one thing I personally have tried to start doing more in practice, is getting behind it and really trying to visualize every shot. I mean, I joke around all the time that like most of us have limited time to practice and play and everything like that. But I really actually do have a decent amount of time if I wanted to carve it out. And that's one thing I tell tour players all the time is like, man, you've got to slow down. You've got to at least every 3 or 4 balls get completely out of the box and behind it and start over. With the driver specifically, I think you need to get behind every single shot, because driver's part art, part science. And the art of hitting the driver well is being able to move from behind the ball into the ball, get your setup correct, get your feet. And then that trigger is kind of like your weight shift from your trail leg kind of pushes forward. So that way your lead leg can push backwards. Like that's how you start a golf swing. You don't just stand there static and then go back. Everyone pushes a little, even if you can't see it, pushes a little forward to start the club back. And that's when people say, I can't get my range game from the range to the course. It's like, yeah, it's not the same thing. And that's where the random crowd would jump in and be like, oh, so you agree with me? We got to change targets. No, I agree. We've got to slow down. We can do this another way. And I think a more effective way.
Yeah. Have you ever tried or played at all on the Meta virtual reality Golf Plus platform? No. Oh my God. All right. If you get an opportunity, it's, so I bought the setup about a year or so ago, and first of all, VR anything, virtual reality anything, it's pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing.
It's incredible. And what I've found is that the game rewards you for many of the same things that the real game rewards you for. So, for example, staying in the shot, not getting quick, or Is it exactly the same? No, it's not. But one of the things that's really cool is when you play these courses, and by the way, Golf Plus is a PGA Tour product. And so, I don't know, there's like 50 courses. And a lot of them that are on the PGA Tour Rota, they're in there, right? So it's TPC.
And it's just like VR goggles you're wearing or something, or what?
Yeah, exactly. I don't have them right here, but yeah, you just wear the goggles. And I'll send you kind of my setup. They basically make, all these VR things, they have these, here, let me grab it. Hold on one second. All right, a little bit of a tangent here, but I think it's worth talking about. This is the setup, and you've probably seen something like this before.
Yeah,
right?
no, I've bought a couple of them before.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I don't know how many games gamers love this stuff.
They're amazing.
I've never been on anything but the golf application. I don't even know how to do Batman or, whatever. I'm not interested. But what they basically do is they allow you to take the controller, which this would be the controller. And I don't know if you can see this, but like it goes on this really cool club setup.
Interesting.
And so you're actually standing up and you're actually taking swings. And that's why I say there's some things inside the game, inside the platform that are really interesting that reward you for the same things that the game does. And one of the things that's really cool is how it induces pressure at all the same places and in all the same ways when you're playing the real game, because it's just so immersive. You hear the birds chirping, there's little things floating in the air. I mean, it's really, if you get a chance. But one of the things—
It's not digitized, it's actual video, it's like actually you're on the course, or is it digitized?
It is digitized, but it would be like simulator golf.
Yeah.
In terms of like the quality, it's simulator golf times 10. It is so much better. So for example, when you get to the green, the immersive nature of it is such that you actually can read the green. You almost feel, there's crazy things.
It can be a little disorienting, I bet.
It can be, yeah. I mean, these VR systems are known for, if you're moving around a lot, you got to be really careful, But in this golf game, you don't have to move around much. But yeah, so all this to say that some of the visualizing, and I'm curious, about what you're doing, but some of the visualizing that I've been able to do come out of how I see the ball going up and at the apex and then coming into the green. It's just really interesting. So, for you, for visualizing, is there one part of the game that you're better at it than other parts, or maybe chipping, putting, whatever?
I mean, I think I'm decent at it with the driver. I mean, I drive the ball really, really well. And so I think I'm pretty good at seeing that start line and the curve and everything. My irons have always been a little bit weak, especially relative to the driver. But then I've become a spot chipper over the last 3 years where I can kind of see where the ball needs to land and the trajectory in order to get to the hole. And all I practice in my chipping now is just trying to carry it 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15 yards. I've never chipped the ball better. And for the last 3 years, the only thing I do is on the side of the chipping green, I just put tees out at those 2-yard increments. And then I'm just practicing trying to carry it those numbers. And even without practicing my short game very much, because I've got just good little feels for, it's kind of like a Pell's clock system, but it's basically between just a setup and then hands and club parallel to the ground. I've got a clock system in between those that give me those 2-yard increments. And like I say, I'm 52. I've played golf for 40 plus years at a very high level. So I can kind of see where it needs to land. I used to always just chip to the hole. And when I went out and got a lesson with Derek Tominski, who's Golf Better Tucson, works with Max Home and a bunch of other great tour players on their short game.
Yeah.
He basically was like, he said, carry 7 yards for me. And because after we chipped for a little bit, he's like, actually, I like your motion. I was like, well, that sucks because I'm not a very good chipper. And he's like, just carry 7 yards for me. And I was like, which hole are we going to? That's more how I see it. And he just so matter of factly was like, well, that's your problem. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you got to be able to carry it to a spot and you've got to be able to see where that spot is. And so I started practicing that way. And now I've got it to where I can just nail those numbers. And then, I'm pretty good at picking the right spot. And so I've just literally never chipped the ball better. And we haven't really talked about the Tiger 5, but one of the things Tiger tracked was no blown easy saves. And I shouldn't say no blown, not too many blown easy saves. And so for me, I do have limited practice time at the end of the day. I'm going to master those easy saves. I'm not really worried about if I can hit a flop shot. If I get into a spot where I need to hit a flop shot, I just need to not make double. Just don't screw this up, because it was probably more of a problem with something earlier that got me to that flop shot in the first place. So if I hit 13 or 14 greens around, I'm just not going to have very many flop shots, kind of like by definition. And so I just need to master the easy shots. So if I were going to try to get back to +6, sure, I need to work on some flop shots, but I think I can get to a +4. I was +2 last year. I had knee surgery and didn't touch a club for about 8 months and blah, 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 blah. So I came back from a +4 to a +2, but I think that I can get back to a +4 even as an older guy now without even being able to hit a flop shot. It's just not necessary. You shouldn't have too many of those.
Yeah, your buddy Tim Graves says exactly the same thing about the flop shot. And he's also a spot chipper too. He's like, what's your spot? What's your spot? What's your spot? Hit it to the spot.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
100%.
Hey, the decade golf, the Ian decade is for expectation management, I think, right?
Yeah, expectation, 100%.
Expectation. I just had a conversation last night with 80 people on a kind of a webinar setting, and we were talking about expectation management. Why is that such low-hanging fruit for people who play, and what should people know about expectations?
Because everybody's expectations are completely out of line. I mean, hold on, I'll grab something right here. Just since you're grabbing stuff, this is the card that I had in my pocket during the Texas Amateur, and it just has the basic strokes gained numbers from every given yardage. And so, like, every single shot that Will hit, I would be like, okay, buddy, you're 100 yards in the rough, average score is 3.02, or you're 160 in the fairway, average score is 2.98. On the PGA Tour, those are the average numbers. And so it's like, dude, we're trying to win the Texas Amateur here. Like, within a tenth of a shot of that. And so once you start understanding these numbers, I'm not going to say it's not that hard to do, because it's obviously relative to your handicap and you got to be a pretty darn good player. But if I tell you at 160 in the fairway, if you can just make a 3, that's PGA Tour caliber golf. Again, relative to your handicap, but for most +2 type players, that's an 8-iron, hit the green and 2-putt it. That's not that hard to do, typically.
Right.
And so once you realize that's an incredible result, so it really gets back to this idea of your score drops far more by avoiding bogeys than it does by making more birdies. The birdies are just kind of luck. They really are. The better you are, the less luck you have to get, but still you need some sort of variance within your shot pattern, that the right shot, the right wind, everything just happened to hit the ball inside of 8 feet, or you're going to need to make a putt that was probably about a 15% make rate. So, like, by definition, it's a little bit of luck. Now, when we play 18 or 72 holes, those things are going to happen, but it's the player that the better the ball striker is, the easier it is for them to intentionally avoid bogey than intentionally make birdie. And it's a very difficult mindset to wrap your head around, because, obviously, yes, I want to birdie every hole. I want to birdie every hole. I'm not trying to birdie every hole. There's a huge difference in the meaning of those two things.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I can want, but not, I can want something, but also know the reality of it actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's where people just can't wrap their heads around. When I say, stop trying to make putts and stop trying to make birdies. Well, how am I ever going to make a putt? The hole's going to get in the way. You still have to hit the putt at it. It's not like because you're not trying to make it, you're not going to accidentally roll one in. I think a college coach told me a couple years ago that he started doing qualifying where you don't count your birdies and better. And at first I was like, I don't know about that. And then the more I thought about it, like, that will for sure find your better player, over the course of a few rounds, because the better player can intentionally avoid bogeys, whereas the worst player with less ball control simply can't. But the great thing about that thought experiment, qualifying experiment, is they're going to see they still will make birdies. And you're definitely not trying to in that situation. You're just trying to avoid bogeys, and you will still see you're going to hit a couple close. You're going to, get up and around par 5s and 2s. Strategy doesn't change just because we're trying to avoid bogeys. Proper decade strategy is still the same thing. and that dovetails back into the idea that your scoring average drops more from avoiding bogey than it does from making more birdies. And that's true to the highest level of the game. Scotty Scheffler and Tiger mimicked each other their first couple of years on tour. They were both like 40th and 50th in bogey avoidance, running at about 15 or 16%. And they were both top 5-ish in total birdies for several years in a row. That shows me if you can control your ball well enough to make a bunch of birdies, you are good. Now, 1 year might be a flash in the pan, but if you do it a few years in a row, you're good. You're also good enough to avoid those bogeys. And so both those guys, Tiger, when he hired Steve Williams, who I think is just probably the best caddy that's ever lived. Fluff's a great caddy too, but they just obviously didn't get Tiger to do this correctly. And then Scheffler, when he hired Ted Scott, like I say, I worked with Ted for 5 years while he was with Bubba. Both those guys come in and clean up that stuff. And both Tiger and Scotty's birdie rate went up a little bit, but 2 or 3 times as much of their improvement came from bogey and higher avoidance. So both of them dropped down to that 10-ish percent. So if you make 4 or 5% fewer bogeys per round, that's 3/4 of a shot. And they made, about 1/4 of a shot more birdies. So they improved by a full shot, but it was 3-1 on bogeys doing it instead of birdies. And the easy argument is maybe they got better. Like overnight, both of them with a new caddy, they both got better overnight. No, that is entirely strategy, mindset. Obviously Ted and Scotty can talk about Jesus out there all day long and feed off of that and stay patient. Tiger and Steve Williams are wired probably exactly the same way with intensity, so they can feed off of each other and just get more and more into their cocoon of focus. And it works perfectly for both of them. I mean, it's just to be the GOAT at anything, it's a perfect storm of a million different things. And their caddy was the final piece of the missing storm for them.
Yeah, I saw that Gary Woodland didn't have a single 3-putt the entire week. So
he gained nearly 9 shots on the green.
Insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, totally insane. I mean, he is a good putter. I went back and looked at his stats. I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but he was definitely plus like 0.4 or something like that. So he's putting well, but kind of by definition, if we did that 4 times, he's gaining 1.6 shots. Let's just say he actually was 0.0 or 0.4. So he gained over 7 shots more than he usually does. And that's just variance. I mean, that is nothing more than variance. He certainly might have been like, dude, I am feeling it this week. That's probably true. But still, to get the ball to intersect with the hole while it's rolling across an imperfect surface with wind interacting on it, the fact that it hit the hole, like on any normal given week, those balls, a couple more of them would have just burned the edges, and his putting would have dropped by 3 or 4 strokes, and he would have been a slightly above average putter for the week, above his average putter for the week. But to get that hot, which is why he won by 5 or whatever it was. I mean, it was just an absurd performance.
Yeah, no question. Did you see the video from Carl Phillips on, I think it was Saturday at the Houston? He basically, see if I have it here. He basically, let's see, what hole was it? On Saturday on hole number 4. It's not coming up. But he's on in 2 and he 5 putts.
Oh, I did see that.
Way in the back, like
triple. If it's the one I'm thinking of, he made a 19-footer for triple. He putted it off the green.
Yeah. It's the old joke. How did you triple number 4? I made a great putt.
Yeah, I mean, how did you 4-putt? I miss, I make.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that pin, I mean, that I didn't see. I saw the video of it. I didn't really investigate the pin. The whole location had to be pretty stupid. I mean, for that to have kind of happened, it had to be pretty ridiculous, which I think a lot of those modern type courses with the giant undulating greens and everything, like that's kind of to be expected.
I mean, that's the putt he's got to make for a 7. I mean, right? That's
totally
kind of insane.
Yeah,
but
I definitely texted my buddy the screenshot of somebody tweeting that he just made a 19-footer for triple after having a birdie putt.
I know, right? And back to this expectation management. It's like, well, it would be easy, and I think one of the most impressive parts of that story, maybe the untold part, is he goes on to the next 9 holes. He goes 2 under. So I think we'd have to ask him. I don't know. I suspect that he did a great job of just leaving that behind. It's like, all right, I'm gonna move on. And that's
what's
what
the
those guys
alternative? I
really
mean,
do well.
that's what's so funny to me is how many times I got mad when I was younger and be like, if I could go back 30 minutes, I would do that differently. And this is a Sam Harris also, where he's like, no, you wouldn't. You would do the same thing a billion times in a row unless you learned a new skill. And it's like, how many times I thought if I could go back 30 minutes, I would do that differently. And it never dawned on me like, well, what's your new skill? I honestly, at the end of the day, when I look back and think of my Tiger 5 mistakes when I was playing professionally, which are bogeys on par 5s, doubles, 3 putts, bogey inside 150, and blown easy save. We turned that into 2 chips for the Decade app just to quantify it. Yep. When you look back at those things, you know those are going to happen every single day. The top 25 Wagger players, both men and women, average over 3 of those 5 mistakes every single day. And that's not even including anything for the 2 chips or blown easy save. So of the other 4 categories, they have 3 1/4 of those per day. And so me personally, when one happens now, I'm just like, all right, well, there's one. When I played Champions Tour final stage last year, I missed getting status by 3 shots. And the 4th hole of the tournament, my knees, I had knee surgery the following week. My knee's in bad shape. So I'm playing in 2 golf shoes, a Jordan with no spikes and a regular spike shoe. And I slip and I just pull hook this 3-iron into the desert. And I wind up walking off with a triple after having 230 or something into a par 5. And walking to the next tee, I'm like, well, there's only 5 spots. That's a pretty unfortunate way to kick this 72 hole event off. What's my choice here? I can just get really pissed off, or I can be like, you know what? There was a bogey on a par 5, a triple. I had 3 Tiger 5s or something, bogey inside 150 on 1 hole. There's 3. You probably should try to avoid making many more of them. And I really was able to just leave it there and move forward. And I do think that kids like Carl Phillips, all these young players coming out on tour, the reason that they're able to do that better is because of understanding this idea of meditation, listening to again, those Pete Carroll, Nick Saban type coaches, and realizing it's not a mystery anymore. I mean, we used to think that the zone was like this mystical zone that you could only get into. At the end of the day, all it is a moving meditation. That's what the zone is at the end of the day, is you are just in a good flow state, which you can create. That is something that can intentionally be done. It's not easy, but it can be done. I mean, I'm sure that's what you teach. And just realizing like there's at least 10 rounds I can think of back in my playing days where I was absolutely in the zone. And it was just by total accident. I had a song stuck in my head or something had happened in my personal life where it was just whatever it was. But I was just out there kind of distracted from golf, probably in kind of a depressed state for me. So everything was just kind of down and low. But now through a pretty strict meditation practice for the last 10 years, I can just do that almost at will. I need to work on it a little bit right now because I certainly haven't been playing a whole lot of golf, but it is something to be done with intention and not to just be a mystery. And that's what Tiger did. I mean, Tiger, we used to literally think he was out there playing golf like hypnotized, like literal pocket watch hypnotized, because he just had this look on his face that just, it's like he wasn't in his body. And now I know that it was just because had been meditating basically since birth. I mean, that's what the car wreck that he had out in California where he destroyed his leg, what he was doing is he was doing playing lessons with celebrities. And the one he had done the prior day was with Jada Pinkett Smith. And on about the 4th or 5th hole, she's driving along. She's like, you just look like you're so intense out there and so focused. Like, it's almost like you're meditating. And he's like, that's exactly what it is. I play golf in a meditative state. And she's like, oh, that's dope. And they talk about it. But then a few holes later, they've got like this drink station set up. And they're just talking. And she says, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies? And he's like, I like to free dive. And she's like, how deep do you go? And she's like, 70, 80 feet. She's like, oh, you're a real free diver. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, why is that? And he goes, well, it gets back to that meditative state we were talking about earlier. If you're 70 or 80 feet underwater and something goes wrong, you'd better be able to control your breathing, control your heart rate, control your mind, and figure out the solution to the problem. And then she asked, and it was the best question ever asked, she asked, well, when did you start? And the way he's got like a little bite of food in his mouth, he's like, when I was born? His mother's Buddhist background. Like, that's just, people always ask about, like, when are we going to get another Tiger Woods? I'm like, when are we going to get another Vietnam? Because his dad, Earl, a Green Beret in Army, meets his mom while on break, a Buddhist Thai. Those people aren't getting connected on Bumble. Those people don't meet anymore. The
algorithm is not putting them together.
Yeah, that is not going to happen. And it really is interesting. Like, it is that important. Now you get two parents that are both kind of type A, over the top crazy. They're probably going to create a kid that's really intense, but also has some performance issues. Having that hard ass Green Beret dad and that soothing mom over here, and she was intense too. Like, it wasn't all dad, but she was intense and like, we're going to do this out of mental discipline. And this guy's like, I'm just going to discipline you. And like, it's just a combination that just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no. Have you heard the quote, outrage is loyalty to the system?
I haven't.
It's something I heard a couple of months ago, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect, right? Because you were talking about before, it's like when faced with these things that really get us frustrated, like we feel like we should show the people around us that I'm better than this, and I'm outraged about the fact that I missed this putt, or whatever. And I think if we can get off that kind of stuff, and I think things like non-dual mindfulness and whatever meditation practice you want to take on can help us in those moments to gain perspective and say, all right, I can do this. I'm not dead.
Yeah. I mean, well, again, that's one of my favorite quotes. Like I just said a second ago, what's the alternative? I mean, that's the Jim Rohn deal. He's like, well, okay, what's the alternative? What's the alternative to I'm going to try to not lose my mind? By definition, losing your mind. So it's like, well, that's obviously not good. So I might as well try this other alternative. I mean, that's when I talk about tee shot strategy and someone wants to drop back from driver. The main question you need to be asking is, okay, what's the alternative and what does it accomplish? And that answer is typically not much. And that's the same thing that runs into the mental side of it. What's the alternative to losing your mind? Well, not. What does it accomplish? A bunch. I mean,
yeah. Hello. Yeah, no, that's for sure. Hey, last question here. I'm going to test your memory. Again, I was talking to your buddy, your old friend, Tim Graves, and he said, hey, he goes, you got to ask Scott about this. He goes, we were playing in a tournament, and he goes, he goes, somewhere in Mississippi, he goes, I forget the course, but he goes, Scott ended up winning that event, but he goes, we were paired together in the final group, and the course was a bit in rough shape.
And he turned it into a parking lot the next week. Literally, it was at a paper.
Oh, is that what? Okay, you know the story then, right?
A parking lot the next week.
Okay,
all right. That's how rough it was.
What happened to you? Do you remember what happened to your very first shot, your very first drive?
I don't, but I know what was happening the 5 minutes before it. So my skin is terrible, and I get these cracks in my fingers, and so I super glue them. Oh. And the guy on the first tee was talking to me as I was doing it and then blowing on it. And I didn't realize I had blown and stuck the two fingers together by putting too much on it. And I'm literally having to pull them apart. Like it wasn't coming very well. That's literally what was happening on the tee right before the shot. So what happened on the shot? I do not remember that, but I do remember super gluing my fingers together.
Maybe same event. That's funny. Maybe that's same event, maybe not. But he goes, Scott bombs one straight down the middle, and he goes, the ball got lost in a crack in the middle of the fairway. We couldn't find it. It was like in a crack or something. I don't know.
I don't remember that.
Anyway, he thought that was hilarious. But
it's funny though. Is I went the entire week without a 3-putt until the 71st hole, and when I was walking off the green, the guy's just standing there. He's like, all right, someone's at 12 under. Well, it was me, whatever the number was, 18 under, I actually think. It was me, but he had kind of implied that someone had posted that. And that's the whole reason that I also talk about like not paying attention to leaderboards and other stuff, because the odds are you might get good information, but golf is just a unique sport because you're not all playing on the same clock. You're not seeing the entire competition right in front of you. Like Duke UConn, I know exactly what's going on in this game.
Everybody
does. But in golf,
yeah.
You just don't. And so any mental energy you waste trying to figure out where it's just that's what speeds your thought process up. That's what gets you out of that zone. So I walk off with my first 3-putt of the week. I'm basically told I'm tied. My brain's going a million miles an hour. Luckily, I happen to stripe it down the fairway. That's the newspaper.
Oh, nice.
That's the front page. It says, Great Scott, the Natchez Daily.
There you go. That's great.
It's funny.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
All right, Scott, where can my listeners and anybody who maybe has been under a rock, I don't know how they've not discovered you, but I want them to, how do they discover you and your teammate Alex, who are doing just some amazing work?
We're trying to grow up as a company enough. You just go to decade.golf. You'll see everything you need there. If you use the code Decade Plus, it'll give you 20% off and 3 free months. You get a 6-month subscription when you first join. It'll throw another 3 months on the end of it. And again, like I say, it's just Decade Plus. And I appreciate anyone who's made it this far into the podcast.
Well, I appreciate your time, Scott. It's I think there's so many implications for somebody who wants to take this journey, and the core strategy idea and all the stats behind it, incredibly important. But I think the way it settles and the fact that expectation management is such a big part of this, I think the way it settles the mind to play, at least have a chance to playing up to your potential on any given day, I think that's also a huge part of this. So huge advocate.
My canned joke that I always work into some podcast is if you feel like you should have shot lower every time you play, you're either not as good as you think you are, or you made mental and strategic mistakes. Like it literally can be nothing else.
Yeah.
And so I do believe, looking back at myself in my 20s, when I would make 2 bogeys from 120 and be laughing about it at the Outback Steakhouse that night with my buddies, I think that I thought I just need to get better at golf in order for that to stop. Not, man, strategically, you could do something a little bit different here. Aim a little, again, from 120. We're not aiming at the middle of the green. Like, that's not optimal, but just a little bit towards the middle of the green. That's what Decade teaches you, is how to find that inflection point between at the flag or the dead center of the green. Where is the optimal scoring average for you? And that's, again, it's been a lot of fun to help people at scale improve their golf game. The amount of DMs I get on Instagram, like, I haven't even bought the app yet and I've saved 5 shots. I'm like, well, then how about float me $100, man?
How about a little something, for the effort?
The effort.
Awesome. All right. Appreciate the time, Scott. Good to speak with you.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Okay. Hope you got to know Scott Fawcett a little bit more there. An amazing golf mind, an amazing player. And like I said, I think he's really beginning to change the way we all think about golf at all kinds of different levels. It doesn't matter if you're elite, pro, amateur, brand new to the game. He's changing the way we think about golf. He's changing the paradigms that have driven how we show up to play the game. And I think that's the important mental game aspect of this, which is why I wanted to talk to Scott in the first place. This whole idea of expectation management, it's absolutely huge when we go out there and play. So hopefully Scott has you thinking in new ways about the game, about what's possible for you, about what you should be concerned about, maybe what you shouldn't. And hopefully you go out there and can apply that in your game. Hey, thanks again for joining me. Again, Paul Monahan here, and my podcast here is called The Most Important Game. If you like what you heard, you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up, give me some likes, and we will continue to try and bring you great content. I'll try and give you. I want to say thanks again to Kevin Monahan in the background, pulling all the levers and doing all the editing work in the background. And as always, keep in mind, stay in the game. It is possible for you to play better, struggle less, and enjoy the game a lot more. See you soon.